Now we will look at the shape of the LSE curve and the impact of economies and diseconomies of scale on the shape of the LSE curve. For example, if you ask why is the shape of the LSE curve like this, flatter U-shaped? Okay, so I gave you many reasons earlier. Okay, but why flatter U-shaped? So one of the reasons could be increasing or decreasing returns to scale, right? Further, other reason is economies of scale and diseconomies of scale. In the earlier videos, I explained that the LSE curve initially declines because, so what I told you in the earlier video, the LSE curve initially declines because of increasing returns to scale, or increases because of decreasing returns to scale, right? Now we will discuss this in terms of economies of scale and diseconomies of scale. Okay, here I have taken output on x-axis, cost on y-axis. Here there is point P, and this is QP output corresponding to point P, and here we have point M, QM output corresponding to point M. Okay, if you look at the section before point P, where the curve is sloping downwards, okay, this curve is sloping downwards. The reason that I will give now is because of economies of scale, okay, or more specifically internal economies of scale. Okay, due to internal economies of scale, a particular firm enjoys n number of cost advantages. Okay, and because of these cost advantages and basically many reasons that contributes to the internal economies of scale, the long run average cost curve declines up to point P. If you look at the section between P and M, it is relatively, the behavior of the curve is, it is relatively stagnant. It is neither falling nor rising. Okay, here the economies of scale, okay, matches the diseconomies of scale. Okay, and if you look at the section after point M, okay, this is the section where long run average cost curve is increasing. Okay, and the answer that I will tell you that the reason being diseconomies of scale. Okay, there are many diseconomies and many economies. To understand this, you should visit the lecture where I have explained what is economies of scale and what is diseconomies of scale. Okay, so that is not the part of this lecture. Here I am just explaining why the behavior of LSE curve. Okay, so the point is the LSE curve is rising because diseconomies of scale set in. That means as the output increases, okay, the diseconomies of scale set in, and as a result of that, the long run average cost curve increases. Okay, economies of scale and diseconomies of scale is one of the important determinants of the long run average cost curve. As you know, it also an important determinant of the market structure. It is also an important determinant of number of firms and their behavior, total number of firms in an industry. Okay, so in the same way, it affects the long run average cost curve also. Okay, how? Because it sets a limit to expansion of production or expansion of the output of a firm. For example, this firm, here the production is 0, right? From here it is expanding its output, but it cannot produce in an unlimited fashion, because after the output QM, the long run average cost curve will increase. Okay, which will put a limit to the production of the firm or to the output which a firm which it can produce in a more profitable way. Okay, it cannot do that beyond this output. Why? Because LSE is rising. And why this long run average cost is rising? Because diseconomies of scale set in. Okay, so that is the answer for that. One more point is when I'm saying that this curve initially decreases because economies of scale, being one of the reasons, I'm referring to the internal economies of scale. Okay, so the curve is declining because internal economies of scale set in. Okay, you may ask then, what about the external diseconomies of scale? In case of external diseconomies of scale, this curve itself, or sorry, the external economies of scale, you should say, or diseconomies, right? The curve itself will shift either upward or downwards. It will not move downwards through these points, but the curve itself will shift either upward or downward. Meaning, when as a result of external economies of scale, the total cost of product, the product cost function itself changes, and the cost decreases. As a result of that, the LSE will decrease, will shift downwards. And as a result of external diseconomies of scale, the LSE curve itself will shift upward. I will just draw it here. For example, so that to make this difference clear, okay. So here you can say this is LSE, okay, and I will draw it. It is the same curve. Here it is declining. It is here. Here it is going up. Okay, and this is LSE. Here we have output. Here we have costs. Right. So as a result of external economies of scale, this LSE curve will shift downwards. Okay, and as a result of external diseconomies, the LSE curve, the cost function basically changes, so that the LSE curve will shift upwards. Okay, and so what about this? Here, when I'm saying economies of scale here or diseconomies of scale, here I am referring to internal economies of scale, and that's why the curve is sloping downwards here. And when I'm discussing external economies of scale, the curve itself will shift. Okay, so this is about the behavior of the long run average cost curve and the impact of economies and diseconomies of scale on it.